The DAY God defeated an army alone, the shocking truth behind this mysterious miracle. Few knew what truly happened that night. Under a sky thick with foreboding clouds, the air crackled with anticipation. The ground trembled as an army prepared to strike. They were fierce, armed to the teeth, faces twisted in rage. But there was something else lurking beyond the chaos. A divine whisper, far from the battlefront, in a quiet corner of Israel, a man named Gideon held a strange weapon, the promise of God. He felt the weight of uncertainty crush his spirit. Was he really chosen? Could he lead barely 300 men against thousands? As anxiety gnawed at him, the shadows danced like spirits of war, whispering doubt into his ear. The land of Midian had become a cage for the Israelites, each crop raided, each hope battered. The people cried out, their voices drowning in despair. They didn't just battle men, they grappled with their faith. Would God really intervene? And if so, how? Little did they know that the answer lay in a force greater than swords or spears. As midnight approached, whispers of destiny swirled around Gideon. Take those torches, break that jar, shout. A command so ludicrous, it could only stem from a higher plane. He looked at his men, eyes wide with disbelief. Could light and sound really fracture an enemy? Their fear was palpable, bodies tense, hearts beating like war drums. The command rang through the night. The moment was electric. Torches ignited, illuminating Gideon's face. Fear transformed to fierce resolve. Together, they shattered their jars, sending echoes through the hills. Could it be? The Midianites turned in confusion. They heard noise, felt the fury of the unexpected. Panic gripped them like a vice. Was it a legion? No. Just a band of men, fervent and brave, reflecting the glory of the unseen. Awesome chaos erupted. The Midianites, accustomed to control, were engulfed in terror's words clashing, cries echoing in the night. It was a pandemonium that blurred the line between reality and divine intervention. Gideon lingered in uncertainty. Could faith wield such raw power? He watched, heart pounding, as warriors fell like leaves in autumn. With each heartbeat, the dawn crept slowly, illuminating the remnants of a shattered army. The remnants of disbelief washed away like blood in the rain. Was this truly a miracle? An army defeated by the simple act of faith and light? Or was there a deeper truth hidden beneath the surface, waiting to be uncovered? As the dawn broke, a question hung heavy in the air. What lay ahead for Gideon and his people? Would they understand the depth of this miracle or fall back into despair? And what of the unknown fire still lingering in the darkness? Hey, before we continue with this amazing story, I need to give you an important heads up. Many subscribers have reported that YouTube unsubscribed them without warning. Take a quick second to check the red button below to make sure you're still subscribed to the channel. I'd hate for you to miss any of the exclusive content coming soon. And while you're there, smash that like button, it really helps me out with the algorithm. Oh, and tell me in the comments, which city are you watching from? I love getting to know every amazing person who's part of this community. Your participation makes all the difference. Let's connect. As the first light of dawn broke over the ridges, the testament of victory lay strewn across the valley. Gideon surveyed the expanse, a landscape transformed from the menacing presence of the Midianite army to one littered with defeated foes and echoes of cries that faded with the morning mist. Yet, amidst the remnants of what had been an insurmountable threat, questions pierced through his heart like arrows. Did we win, or was it God who fought for us? He pondered, his voice only whispered in the silence that followed the chaos. The clarity of dawn did not bring with it comfort, rather, it shrouded him in contemplation. A battle faced with such extraordinary means, how could mere mortals lay claim to this victory when it was accompanied by an ethereal whiff of the divine? His men, once fearful and trembling, were now silhouetted against the rising sun, laughter and disbelief mingling as they picked their way through the debris of what had seemed impossible. But even in their jubilation, Gideon could not shake the weight of their previous suffering, the years of oppression and the toll that despair had exacted. Would today's triumph truly signal a deeper deliverance, or merely serve as a fleeting reprieve? Gather the men, Gideon commanded, a fervent resolve igniting within him. They circled together, faces glowing with the triumph of survival and the exhilaration of victory. Each man was an amalgamation of stories. Some had lost families to Midian's tyranny, while others had witnessed the slow, consuming agony of their homeland. Together they had forged an improbable bond, but the heart of a leader felt heavy with responsibility. Today we have seen the hand of God, yet we must know our place within His greater purpose, Gideon articulated, though uncertainty clung to his words. We stood against an army, yes, but it was not our might that prevailed, it was the light of faith shining through darkness. We must not grow complacent, for the shadows still lurk beyond. A murmur of agreement rose among the men, yet Gideon could sense the lingering threads of doubt weaving through their thoughts. What was next? They were soldiers forged in a conflict, and though for a moment they had glimpsed what faith could yield, the specter of Midian still loomed in the hearts of the people. Would the victory of today drown out the haunting memories of yesterday? As they began to gather the spoils scattered across the field, the remnants of a failed invasion, questions echoed among the ranks. How would they share this miracle with those who remained behind in the villages? Could a single night of divine intervention flourish into lasting change and hope? Yet, amidst the clamor of conversation, a haunting realization struck Gideon. Victory could sow seeds of its own peril. Would their hearts grow proud? Would they forget the fear that had once gripped them, trading it for entitlement in the face of what they deemed capable? The land had been restored, but for how long? And as the group began to disperse, the warmth of victory gave way to the chill of the past. Gideon found himself standing apart, gazing out beyond the smattering of bodies and torn banners. What lay hidden in the hearts of the people still? Could they understand that the walls of oppression were not merely made of flesh and steel but of the fears that imprisoned them from within? In that stillness, he prayed for wisdom, sensing the dawn of new trials emerging on the horizon. Was this true freedom or merely the beginning of another struggle? As the sun rose higher, casting light and shadow across the land, one question remained suspended like the very air before a storm. Could this victory lead to deeper faith, or would it cause them to forget the true source of their deliverance? As the sun reached its zenith, casting a warm glow over the battlefield now littered with the signs of their struggle, Gideon's mind remained tethered to the haunting uncertainty of the future. The laughter of his men turned to the silence of contemplation as they busied themselves with gathering treasures, golden baubles and gleaming weapons, symbols of their victory but also potential burdens. Is it not strange, Gideon thought, eyeing the gleaming spoils, that in seeking to reclaim our lives, we are drawn to the very things that might corrupt our spirits? The desire for wealth and recognition danced perilously close to the flame of their newfound freedom, threatening to engulf the humility that brought them here. He gathered the men once more, their faces illuminated by the day's light, but reflecting shadows of their past. Listen, brothers. The victory we have witnessed is a gift, yes, but a gift comes with responsibility. Let us not forget who we are nor the God who raised his hand for us. The spoils before us do not belong to us, they belong to the one who orchestrated this deliverance, he called, sensing the urgency in his spirit. As he spoke, he saw flickers of understanding pass between them, a recognition that with deliverance came an obligation to remain vigilant against pride and excess. We must forge our path moving forward, not in the glimmer of riches, but in the steadfastness of our faith, Gideon implored. Let us offer a portion of these spoils back to Jehovah, as a thankfulness for what he has done. For what worth is victory if we forget the one who fought for us? A solemn agreement rippled through the gathered men, but Gideon could see the war within them. As their hands reached for spoils, one could almost feel the pull of temptation. Would they embrace a life of worship or let fleeting wealth lead them away from the heart of their God? While some set about preparing offerings to the altar, Gideon felt a whisper of confusion deepen within him, a question that had echoed in the quiet of his heart since the first trumpet had sounded. What does it mean to be chosen? He wondered, grappling with the weight of responsibility and the enormity of the miraculous events. Was I merely a vessel, or was there a purpose in my own journey? He recalled the nights filled with fear and doubt before he had encountered the angel of the Lord. How he had once hidden in a winepress, focused on survival instead of mission. Have I truly traversed from cowardice to courage, or have I donned the mask of a warrior, forgetting the trembling boy I used to be? Gideon mused, aware of the transformations taking root within him and the burden they brought. As the men shared stories of their victories and the joys of what lay ahead, Gideon raised his eyes towards the distant horizon. The sun shone brightly, yet on the edges of this light, shadows loomed, signs that the earth churned beneath their feet. Would the Midianites seek revenge? Were their hearts truly prepared for what lay beyond today's glories? Brothers, he called, drawing their attention, we may have humbled an army today, but we must guard against the army of despair that still resides within our souls. The battle for our hearts is not one fought with swords but one enduring through faith and vigilance. With movements gentle yet profound, they set aside the glimmering gold and rubbed their hands together, united in a language of hope. The offerings glimmered toward the heavens, a silent proclamation that gratitude was not bound by material wealth but resonated through the fabric of their collective journey. Yet still, a question lingered in Gideon's heart: what good is a victory if the people remained unyielding in their fears? Would they stand firm against future trials, or would the victory itself become a source of their downfall? As the afternoon sun cast long shadows behind them, the uncertainty hung like a cloud over the horizon, and Gideon could not help but wonder what trials awaited that would test the very faith that had brought them this far. As the days followed the victory over Midian, the air hung heavy with an almost palpable tension. Gideon stood amidst his men, the elation from the battle slowly giving way to questions that seemed to rise like mist in the cool morning air. While victory had brought them immeasurable joy, it also ushered in a season of introspection, a turning over of stones to examine the depths of their hearts. One day, while seeking a moment of solitude away from the throng of celebration, Gideon climbed a nearby hill, his heart weary from the questions that plagued him. From this vantage point, he could see the camp bustling beneath him, a swirl of activity punctuated by laughter and shouts. Yet, all he could see in this newfound joy were the stories still untold, the burdens still unconfessed. "Lord," he whispered, "what have we won?" The question flowed from a deep reservoir of concern. He turned his gaze toward the horizon, his heart aching as he recalled the strength of the armies they had faced. Is our victory merely a fleeting shadow, or does it lead to a deeper truth about your will? Suddenly, a wind stirred around him, whispering through the trees, carrying with it the essence of something divine. He stood still, struck by the remembrance of the angel who had appeared to him, the one who spoke of valor when all he could see was his own trembling spirit. "Will you speak to me again?" His earnest plea filled the empty space above as he sought guidance for his people. In that stillness, a quiet thought manifested in his mind: had they truly humbled themselves before the Lord? Had they genuinely acknowledged his hand in their victory, or was their praise just another layer of pride, hidden beneath the veil of gratitude? As he mulled over this notion, he recalled the ancient words of the prophets: "God resists the proud, but gives grace to the humble." With renewed fervor, he descended the hill and gathered the men once more, the atmosphere eerily charged with the unspoken weight of their collective failure to confront the truth. Gideon's heart raced as he spoke: "Brothers, our triumphs are a double-edged sword. We stand victorious, but in victory, we must not cower from intimacy with the divine. Let us seek an audience with God, to understand His will and ensure our hearts remain steadfast in worship, not indulgent in celebration." As he scanned the faces of his companions, he perceived both resolve and concern. They were a blend of honor and uncertainty, each man wrestling silently with his own doubts and the threat of temptation. We must ask ourselves difficult questions. Are we prepared to meet the God of the miracles we've just witnessed? Can we bow low in our triumph as we did in the moments of desperation? Talk buzzed amongst them, with some echoing Gideon's sentiments, while others voiced apprehensions about the sudden weight of responsibility that seemed to hang heavier than any sword they had wielded. Seeing the divisions forming, Gideon felt the pressing need to unify their hearts. Let us prepare a time of prayer and fasting. We must humble ourselves before God to discern His will for us as we move forward. In this season, it is clear that our greatest battle lies not in the flesh but against our own spirits. On the agreed day of seeking, they gathered in a vast clearing, the air thick with anticipation and apprehension. As they encircled the simple fire, one by one, they began to share their fears, their victories, and the shadows creeping into their hearts since the triumph. The confessions filled the air, a sacred tender gathering of spirits that laid bare their souls before the Almighty. Hours passed, but the roar of the collective ache transformed into a murmurous cry for mercy, a yearning to remain connected to the true source of their strength. Just as silence settled around them, an elder from among them stood, aged and wise, and spoke: "What if our victory was not just our own, but a call for the days to come? Brothers, as we walk away from this moment, let us not come back together only to celebrate an event. Let our gatherings be a testament to an unyielding faith and a journey toward becoming what we are meant to be, a people marked by divine victory against our own darkness." Eyes widened and hearts stirred, the realization dawned that their personal struggles were knitted into the fabric of their collective journey. The profound recognition of this connection stirred a new question to life, one yet unanswered: how will we nurture the faith required to face the trials to come, and will our hearts be strong enough to withstand the tests of glory and humility? Anxiety lingered in the hearts of the Israelites as they broke from their gathering, each man weighed down by the unspoken revelation that their greatest adversary was not the Midianites, but the tendency to forget the steadfastness of their God. Gideon wandered back to his tent, dipping into deep contemplation. The glow of the fire they had shared still lingered in his mind, the confessions echoing like a distant heartbeat, urging him on as he sifted through the stories that wove together the fabric of their faith. That evening, with the sun dipping low and casting long shadows over the camp, an encroaching stillness ushered in a new awareness. Not a single sound of celebration reached him; instead, an unsettling quiet filled the space, a stark reminder of the fragility of their victory. Even nature seemed to pause, and a profound solitude wrapped around Gideon like a cloak. "Lord," he said, his voice almost a whisper among the encroaching dusk, "what must be revealed within our hearts?" He began to pray, beseeching clarity for not himself, but for the people he had come to cherish deeply. "In this moment of peace, grant us insight. What do we carry that we are still unwilling to lay before you? Then, as if in response to his earnestness, a thought surfaced, vivid and tangible. Could this victory be a doorway rather than a destination? What lies beyond this moment of triumph? The question hung heavy in the air as Gideon pondered the implications of such a discovery. Suddenly, he remembered the ancient stories passed down through the generations, tales of how the Lord led his people through trials that mirrored their inner struggles, each hardship a lesson of faith and dependence. The exodus from Egypt echoed in his Minda journey, fraught with uncertainty yet rich with divine presence. Had they arrived at a similar crossroad? How could the lessons from their past reverberate through the chasms of their hearts? When morning broke, Gideon sensed a restlessness stirring among his men. As they gathered once more, he noted the threads of anxiety that stitched their conversations. The weight of past burdens mingled with their newfound glory, creating a blend that neither felt entirely like victory nor defeat. Brothers, he addressed them with earnest zeal, it is not enough to rest in what has been won. The path we tread now is carved by the will of God. Are we prepared to move forward, knowing he fights our battles for us still? We must seek to understand his intentions in this moment and allow ourselves to be transformed in the process. Point 1. Man, anxiety etched into his face, bravely spoke out, but what if we are called to face yet more peril? We've tasted the sweetness of victory, yet it only opens the realm of deeper uncertainties. What will those lead us into? Gideon paused, allowing the question to resonate within the circle. They had survived the Midianites, yet the veiled challenges that lay ahead loomed over them like dark clouds on the horizon. Indeed, the unknown is frightening, he replied solemnly. But could it be that this fear we harbor is the very heart of what must be faced? If we are to grow, might we need to embrace the beautiful uncertainty of God's unfolding plan? As conversation sparked again among the men, a sense of urgency enveloped them. They realized that victory must serve as a launchpad into the unknown, a call to action rather than a resting place of contentment. They began to understand that true faith did not deny fear, instead, it invited them to step through it, trusting the God who had delivered them. Gideon listened as thoughts challenged one another, doubts mingled with hope, and gradually a resolve began to form. While some still clung to the notion of normalcy they craved, others grasped the threads of vulnerability, attempting to weave them into a new narrative. As this day drew to a close, Gideon felt a familiar stirring within, a sense that a deeper purpose was taking shape, one that beckoned them all into the wild unknown. Brothers, remember, our journey is not defined by the victories we achieve, but by how those victories transform our hearts before the Lord. As we walk onward, will we seek faithfulness amid the shadows, or allow ourselves to be defined by the fear of what may come? The question hung between them, echoing the uncertainty of their destinies, a reminder of the dual call to action and reverence lying ahead on this ever-unfolding path. The night descended upon the camp like a thick blanket, and Gideon's thoughts were not yet settled. As he prepared to rest, the flickering flames cast dancing shadows upon the tent walls, mirroring the conflict within him. He lay on his bed of woven reeds, eyes wide open, staring up at the night sky speckled with a multitude of stars. Each twinkle ignited memories of ancient promises made long ago, stories shared around the fires of their forefathers, reminders that God had not only crafted their past but was the architect of their future. Whispers of doubt flickered like the firelight, gnawing at the edges of his resolve. Lord, have you truly destined me to lead them through what lies ahead? He whispered, feeling the weight of leadership press down on him. These men, they look to me for assurance, yet I tremble thinking of the uncertain paths that beckon. As the stillness deepened around him, a sudden shiver coursed through the air. It was not merely the coolness of the night that sent a shudder down his spine, but an overwhelming sense that he was not alone. He sat up, straining to listen, and in that quiet, he heard a voice, soft yet profound, resonance echoing within his spirit. Do not fear, Gideon, it seemed to whisper, soothing the tempest within his soul. What you seek is already laid before you. It is not in the victories won that peace is found, but in the trust you place in the one who guides your steps. Gideon's heart raced, for he recognized the familiar cadence of the voice that had stirred him in the past. It was the voice of God, gentle yet resolute, reminding him of the covenant made with Israel. A warm glow of hope ignited within him, dispelling the shadows that had clouded his thoughts. With renewed courage, he arose and stepped outside. The moon hung high and bright, illuminating the camp in a soft silver glow. He looked around, seeing his men resting in varying states of slumber, some mumbling in dreams, others shifting beneath their coverings. They were but a fragile assembly of souls, each one grappling with the weight of the moment and what lay in wait. As he wandered through the camp, his ears tuned to the night sounds, the rustle of leaves, the distant cry of a night bird. He felt an inexplicable draw towards the edge of the encampment. There, in the distance, a flicker of light greeted his gaze, brighter than the stars. It pulsed rhythmically, almost as if beckoning him closer. With a heart full of trepidation yet emboldened by faith, he approached the source. As he drew near, he recognized the figure standing in its brilliance. It was an angel of the Lord, resplendent and imposing, radiating a presence that demanded reverence. Gideon, the figure spoke, I have come this night to affirm what is to come. You are chosen not for your strength, but for your willingness to yield before the mighty hand of God. You will not contend with the Midianites in your own might, but my presence will go before you. The words struck Gideon like a bolt of lightning, unveiling the true mystery of their circumstances. It was not merely a battle against flesh and blood, but a spiritual warfare designed to exhibit God's sovereign power. Lord, he gasped, what am I to do? Gather your men, but be prepared to surrender what you seek as victory. For in your weakness, my strength will be made evident, the angel declared, and as quickly as he had appeared, he vanished, taking the light with him and leaving only a lingering sense of awe. Gideon returned to his tent, his spirit aflame with revelation. He felt the weight of doubt lift, replaced by intense anticipation. The very essence of their journey was transforming before his eyes. He pondered what it meant to lead an army not by conventional strategies or might, but by faith and surrender to a God whose intentions reach far beyond their understanding. As dawn began to break, painting the sky in hues of orange and pink, he gathered his men once more. Their faces, still shadowed by worry from the night before, turned toward him as he stood before them, a newfound fervor igniting his voice. Brothers, Gideon proclaimed, the Lord has spoken. Our battle is not what we envisioned, nor is it to be fought in our strength. We are called to surrender, trusting that He fights for us in ways we cannot yet comprehend. Will we step into this trial, embracing the uncertainty of His plans for us? Or will we cling to the fears that tether us to our past? The air crackled with a mix of excitement and trepidation as they responded with murmured affirmations, yet Gideon felt the gravity of the task ahead loom ever larger. Would they grasp the depth of what was being asked, or would the weight of the unknown crush their resolve? The question lingered in the morning air, a reminder that the path to true victory often lay in the willingness to embrace the unseen. As the sun crested the horizon, a new day dawned clothed in a tapestry of colors, signaling not just the passage of time but a turning point in the lives of Gideon and his men. The camp buzzed with a restless energy, each man grappling with the weight of Gideon's words. The flickering hope ignited in their hearts clashed with the remnants of despair, and the air was thick with anticipation and uncertainty. Gideon, emboldened by the angel's revelation, climbed atop a large boulder, his voice mustering like a spring after a long drought. Men of Israel, today, we embark not on a quest of our making, but on a journey of divine orchestration. We will send our voices against the fear that cripples us and lend our hearts to the might of the Lord. As he spoke, he caught sight of the multitude, the strangers who had turned into brothers in arms, eyes reflecting a spectrum of emotions. In their silence lay an unspoken question: could they truly trust in a path laid not in the blood and grit of warriors, but in the tender mercy of their God? Gideon paused, sensing their hesitation. Remember the stories passed down through generations, he continued, how our ancestors were led across the Red Sea, how the walls of Jericho fell with a shout. What is impossible for man is possible for the Almighty. Today, we will see His hand at work. Yet even in his fervor, Gideon felt the tremors of doubt beneath the surface, a reminder that faith was not the absence of fear but the choice to look beyond it. As their voices began to murmur in collective agreement, Gideon felt a surge of responsibility. He could not lead them into battle without equipping them for the journey of faith. He called upon each man to gather what they had: trumpets, clay pots, torches, ordinary items that would turn extraordinary in the hands of a God who delights in surprising His people. They scoured their meager inventory, finding the tools that would become instruments of faith, though they seemed foolish in the face of an army. As the day wore on, Gideon sought out comfort in solitude, retreating to the quiet grove near the encampment. There, he poured out his heart, wrestling with the enormity of what lay ahead. Lord, do you not see the might of our enemy? He cried into the stillness, anguish lacing his voice. See, we are to fight, the weapons of men are all I know. How can this be right? In that moment, a gentle breeze wrapped around him, carrying with it a whisper of peace. Trust in the unseen, Gideon. You will witness wonders beyond imagination. It is the heart of a people united in faith that shall bring victory, not through numbers or might, but through your surrender. The seeds of understanding took root within his heart, blossoming into a clarity that had eluded him. He realized this battle was shaping his men into a people who would not fight for victory alone but would fight for communion with the Almighty. The spiritual bond forged through surrender would embolden them far beyond the battlefield. When evening cast its shadows, Gideon gathered his men once more. Their faces were streaked with a mixture of determination and fear as they stood before him, ready to embark on this uncharted path. Listen closely, he said, we will descend upon the Midianite camp under cover of darkness. When we sound the trumpets, shatter the vessels, and raise our voices, this will signify our trust in God's deliverance. That night, as they made their way towards the enemy's stronghold, a blanket of stars adorned the vastness above, reminding each man of the ancient promises sealed upon the land. They positioned themselves in silence, enveloped in a spirit of unity that transcended mere camaraderie. They were becoming one, bound by faith, not by fear. As the first trumpet sounded under the cloak of night, a sound echoed through the valley, reverberating like the voice of the Lord himself. It was a clarion call of faith. Instantly, the torches burst into life, illuminating the faces of the men who were no longer visible as separate entities but as a singular force of hope. But as shadows flitted around them in the darkness, Gideon held his breath, not from fear but from a dawning realization. This was the moment of truth. What would unfold in this fragile hour would not merely shape the destiny of their people but would etch an eternal testament to faith in a God who moves in mysterious ways. With hearts pounding, they raised their voices in unified shout. A cry that mingled faith with sheer desperation filled the air, and Gideon wondered, would God truly turn the tide of battle with just a shout, or was there something deeper woven into the fabric of their reality? In that moment, as broken pots clattered against the ground and the sky reverberated with their collective cry, he felt the weight of the question linger long after the sound faded into the night. Could they truly trust that the victory already belonged to the one who called them forth? As the last echo of their shout faded into the vast night, a palpable tension filled the air, hanging thick like the dark clouds preceding a storm. The men of Israel clutched their swords tightly, the illumination from the torches casting long shadows that danced unnaturally against the earth. For a brief heartbeat, the world stood still, and in that silence, the magnitude of their action began to unfold. What transported Gideon's heart was the deep, resonant sound of confusion that rippled through the Midianite camp. A collective murmur of fear ensued, escalating into a clamor of panic that pierced the stillness, sending ripples of anxiety through the ranks of their enemies. It was not just noise, it was the raw manifestation of their disbelief and terror, an awakening to the unseen power that had been unleashed among them. Look! One of Gideon's men murmured, voice barely breaking from the tension. They stood poised at the edge of the battle, observing the Midianites scramble in disarray, striking out at shadows. It's as though their fear is a living thing. In the distance, torches painted the night red like pools of blood, their light revealing glimpses of men turned against each other. Fear-incited chaos overtook the camp. What appeared to be an army of invaders crumbled before them, unraveling like threads of a garment in the hands of a skilled weaver, pulled apart by an unseen hand. Gideon, every ounce of his being tuned to this miraculous shift, suddenly grasped an undeniable truth. In their unified faith, an unseen army had risen, wielding fear as its weapon. They were not merely witnessing a battle of swords and shields, they had been granted a glimpse into the depths of spiritual warfare, where victories are claimed not through might but through surrender. In the act of trust, divine providence unfurled before them. The Midianites erupted in shouts filled with terror. They are upon us. The Israelites have turned against us. The air grew thick with confusion, but it did not hide the evident power echoing in both fear and faith. The sound of clashing swords and desperate cries began to swirl around Gideon and his men, reverberating in his chest, a clarity unfolding that whispered of something deeper, a truth beyond. One of the men near Gideon, trembling with a mixture of exhilaration and bewilderment, exclaimed, "How is this possible? What sorcery is at work that brings fear upon our enemy instead of swords upon our own hearts?" Gideon's thoughts raced, his heart pounded as the depth of their call and response began to dawn on him. Perhaps our voices do more than we understand. Maybe they invite the very presence of the Lord among us, revealing the foundations of his creation, the harmony of faith and fear, chaos and clarity. He felt the stirring conviction that they were mere instruments in a celestial symphony, called to play their part even when the notes seemed dissonant. In this moment, he understood that their battle was far deeper than the clash of armies. It was of faith against fear, of belief against doubt. Would they realize the profound truth that this very act of trust could open the heavens, exposing the heart of God to a people learning to believe in something greater than their understanding? The confusion among the Midianites escalated to turmoil, and Gideon urged his men forward. Their shouts could still command the fight while they pressed on, but questions filled the space between them. What will happen next? Will the night truly deliver us, or will the dawn unveil a different fate? As they rushed forward, they were swept up not only in the turmoil of battle but also in a deeper reflection. Gideon felt the tremors of the past intertwined with the unknown future. They had stepped into a moment where belief manifested as the very fabric of their reality. Would this unfolding event eternally shift the paradigm of their understanding of God, or would they soon find the fleeting nature of this victory tested by the trials to come? As the sounds of clanging swords and desperate cries echoed around them, he could not shake. The unease was the true battle merely beginning, despite all they had already witnessed. As the chaos unfolded in the Midianite camp, confusion turned to terror, and the veil between the seen and unseen inched closer to being lifted. Gideon pressed into the fray with his men, voices entangled in fervor, as each shouted call reverberated off the hills. Their hearts raced not only from the thrill of impending victory but also from the weight of understanding that they were participating in something far more profound than mere warfare. Gideon's resolve, once marked by doubt and hesitation, now surged with a fervent certainty, a knowing that echoed in his soul. This act of obedience, bold yet rooted in faith, revealed how divine intervention played out within the bounds of human action. As his men advanced, he led them through the turmoil, yet every step echoed a question in the recesses of his heart: what lay beyond this night of shaking and shouting, beneath the surface of this bewildering triumph? The cries of the Midianites, now forming a dissonant chorus, offered an eerie soundscape. They struck at phantoms, blinded by their own fear, each swing of a sword lost amidst the panic. Could it be that they battled not only one another but an invisible adversary, their own dread magnified by the presence of the Lord? Gideon could not ignore the whisper of something sacred teaching him to trust against all odds. But would the awe of this moment lift his people, or would they falter in the brightness of the dawn? As their charge continued into the camp, he witnessed men crashing against one another like autumn leaves caught in a storm. Each wild motion expressed not only fear but doubt, a testament to the doubt that had gripped their hearts in the days before. He paused in the chaos, feeling an urgent need to turn. The Tidito revealed to his soldiers the very heart of the battle they faced. With a commanding voice, he gathered his men, their breath steadying in the face of an unseen reality. Remember, brothers. This battle is not ours but the Lord's. Act not from fear but from faith. Let confidence born of trust rise like a fragrant offering, invoking him who fights for us. For an instant, the air felt charged with expectancy. Gideon's words ignited a flicker of assurance among them, as if a curtain was drawn back to reveal a truth both daunting and glimmering with hope. As they cried out, unity washed over them, a tangible wave pulling them closer to the divine promise made long ago. Yet still were they prepared for the weight of this revelation. Within the confusion, Gideon felt the pressing urgency of the moment where victory lay close, yet he knew the lessons of the past were not so easily forgotten. Memories of their bygone failures and forgetfulness mingled with the thrill of newfound strength. Would they recognize that what they were witnessing was not merely an outcome of their strength, but the hand of God teaching them? Suddenly, from within the swirling darkness beyond their campfires, a glimmer caught his eyeshadows coalescing, figures that seemed less tangible than men. What were they, angels or specters stirred into action by faith, or were they merely figments of a heart filled with longing for divine assurance? Gideon's heart raced, visions of possibility blurring the edges of reality, revealing a wondrous and perplexing truth: the very forces of heaven could be set in motion by the trust exhibited by those on earth. And yet, even amidst the joyous shouts of triumph, a gnawing question lingered: if the battle was indeed won by the unseen hand of God, what did that mean for the hearts of his people? Could this moment shift not only the army's understanding of warfare but also their relationship with the God who fought for them? Would they grasp the reverberating truth that extremes of faith could unearth depths of grace, or would they soon return to doubt as the dawn approached? The tumult faded slightly, but the dawn brought a new urgency, and he could sense a turning. How would they meet the morning light? Would it reveal the full scope of this miraculous night, or would it test the very foundations of their faith? Each step filled with uncertainty, Gideon pressed forward, empowered yet introspective, contemplating the path leading from the darkness into unknown light. As the chaos and confusion of the night lingered, dawn crept over the horizon, illuminating the battleground with the golden light of a new day. The echoes of clashing swords and frantic shouts still rang softly in the air, but as shadows retreated, the reality of what had taken place began to settle like dew upon the grass. Gideon stood at the edge of the Midianite camp, gazing upon the remnants of a shattered army, and an awful silence cloaked him like a sacred veil. How could one night of faith and surrender result in such a stunning change? The defeat of the Midianites was not merely a victory over an adversary but a clarion call to the hearts of the Israelite people, a demonstration of divine intervention that transcended human capacity. Yet amid the beauty of this revelation hung a question as fragile yet potent as the morning mist: what would they do with this miraculous encounter? Gideon sensed a profound shift within the gathered men around him. They stood, still breathing heavily from the adrenaline of the night's events, faces illuminated by the sun that rose in a grandeur only God could orchestrate. Some wept in gratitude, others whispered prayers of thanksgiving, while a few remained silent, grappling with an understanding yet to be fully realized. The journey they had just taken had transformed them from mere warriors into witnesses of fight, a state requiring more than mere acknowledgement of victory. Brothers. Gideon's voice rang out, carrying the weight of raw emotion. Look at what our God has done. We came into this battle armed with little but faith, and he has proven sufficient in our weakness. Their faces brightened, eyes reflecting a mixture of confusion and elation. Yet, Gideon could perceive beneath it all a flicker of uncertainty. Would this be their final battle, or merely the beginning of a new struggle? We have fought not just against an enemy without, but against the doubts that cloud our hearts. Today, we must choose what to carry forward. Will we remember the God who fought for us, or will we let complacency seep into our souls? The murmured agreement undulated through the men, but Gideon knew this would not come without challenge. As the men began to gather the spoils of their unexpected victory, shiny treasures and weapons gleaming with the promise of security, Gideon felt an urgency within him. Let us not let these riches take root in our hearts. They are reminders of what God has accomplished, not trophies for our pride. He gestured towards the horizon, where beyond the battlefield lay the land God had promised to them. For if we seek only the sweetness of victory, we risk entangling ourselves in the very fears we sought to escape. True victory demands that we reflect on our standing before God and seek to build a future rooted in faith, not in material gain. The weight of his words sunk deep into the hearts of the men, and the atmosphere shifted once more as they began to understand, their journey was not over, it had just begun. Gideon knew that this was the ultimate test of their faith, the battle beyond the battlefield, where each man would be challenged to live in accordance with the trust they had found. As the sun rose higher, casting its brilliance across both land and people, a newfound unity enveloped the group. They clasped hands, forming a circle that bore witness not only to their physical victory, but to a bond forged in spiritual understanding. In that moment, Gideon felt the full depth of their shared journey. They were all chosen, each equipped with a story of struggle and triumph to carry forward. Let us lift our voices in praise, not just for the victory we have, but for the lessons learned and the faith revived. Together, Gideon declared, a fire igniting within him, let us make a covenant with our God to remember his hand at work in our past, to seek him in every struggle that lies ahead, and to commit to building a community that reflects his glory. As their voices rose, harmonizing with the dawn, something miraculous unfolded in their midst. It was as if the heavens opened, and a gentle wind swept through their circle, embracing them with an otherworldly presence. The men found themselves united not only in voice but in spirit, transcended by an unexplainable force that urged them to trust in the path laid before them. It was a new calling, an invitation to live out the miraculous not as distant tales of defeat and victory, but as daily acts of faith woven into their lives. In this moment of revelation, they grasped the wondrous truth of their existence. Victory was not an endpoint, but a journey of yet becoming, a pathway of surrender infused with purpose and hope. As their joyous cries echoed out across the horizon, Gideon marveled at how faith had unraveled the darkness, showcasing the unseen realities that often lay hidden beneath the surface. Each man held within him the potential to illuminate the world, glistening reminders that even the smallest act of faith could yield explosive change. And so, as the first rays of the brightening sun graced the earth, a weight lifted, revealing a sacred promise. They would not just be the generation that witnessed a miracle, but one that was motivated to cultivate a life of unwavering trust. They would walk forth not as conquerors, but as faithful stewards of hope, unity, and love, ready to face every challenge in the strength and spirit of the God who had gone before them. As the victory illuminated the land, a ripple of transformation spread among the people, urging them to embrace the reality of their new existence. The journey of Gideon and his men was no longer just about fighting battles, it was about living as vessels of faith, taking both victory and vulnerability into the days that lay ahead. Yes, the army had been defeated under the stars, but a greater truth had emerged, one that would echo through generations yet to come. They were called to embody faith and let the light of God shine through every aspect of their lives. No longer shackled by despair, they emerged from the darkness transformed, not just in the flesh, but in spirit, ready to embrace whatever lay beyond, with hearts fertile for the seeds of faith that would continue to grow for ages to come.